Imagine this. You wake up in the Stone Age. There's no alarm clock, no hot shower, no Starbucks latte waiting for you. Just a damp cave. Your back sore from sleeping on uneven rocks. And the distant sound of a mammoth snorting outside like a neighbor revving his motorcycle at 6 a.m. You roll over, rub your eyes, and realize you don't even have a toothbrush. What you do have? A fist-sized rock. And because you're a caveman, you look at it and think, yeah, this'll work. Cut to our caveman hero. Hair like a bird's nest, face still crusted with last night's campfire ash, and teeth, let's just say his dental hygiene is closer to biohazard than minty fresh. He lifts the rock with great determination, presses it against his teeth, and scrapes screehy. The sound alone could scare away a saber-toothed tiger. His eyes widen, his face twists, and then he screams, ah, ah, dropping the rock and clutching his jaw. Pause. Yes, that was the actual Stone Age version of brushing your teeth. Don't try this at home, unless you want to invent your own dental insurance plan. But here's the thing. Cavemen didn't just stumble around being dumb all day. They were the ultimate hackers of human history. No Wi-Fi, no Amazon Prime, no IKEA furniture. Just rocks, sticks, bones, and a lot of free time. And from that came one of the most important inventions ever, the stone knife. Now, when you think knife, you probably imagine something shiny from a kitchen store with a brand name like Samurai Steel. She's Navi 000. But in the Stone Age, a knife wasn't about looks. It was about survival. No knife? You're eating raw meat with your bare hands like a raccoon at 2 a.m. with a knife. Suddenly, you can cut hides, carve spears, scrape bark, and look just a tiny bit cooler in front of the other cavemen. And let's be reactive and cared about status too. If you had a sharp knife, you weren't just surviving. You were flexing, so how do you even begin to make a knife with no instructions? No DIY knife tutorial videos. No caveman influencers saying, smash that rock, like, comment with your favorite hunting strategy. And don't forget to subscribe for more Stone Age hacks. Nope, it was just you, 2 rocks, and a whole lot of trial and error. Our caveman hero picks up 1 rock in each hand, holds them high like he's about to conduct an orchestra, and smashes them together. Clack, a spark. He gasps. Clack, another spark. His eyes widen. He thinks he's discovered magic. Then CRACK. One of the rocks shatters, and a shard flies straight into his forehead. He stumbles back, rubbing the bruise, glaring at the rock like it betrayed him. And yet, when he picks up the broken piece, he notices something. One edge is sharp, razor sharp. So sharp, he slices his thumb without even meaning to. He yelps, sucks on his finger, and then grins. That's when it hits him. Broken rocks could cut. And this is the moment humanity leveled up. The world's first oops accident turned into the invention of the first knife. Not polished, not elegant, not stainless steel, but it worked. And that's all that mattered. Of course, it wasn't as easy as just smashing rocks until one broke sharp. Sometimes the edges were too jagged. Sometimes they crumbled. Sometimes they weren't sharp enough. So our caveman spends hours trying, failing, smashing, and occasionally screaming at inanimate objects. If you've ever tried assembling IKEA furniture, you know the exact feeling. But here's the kicker. Cavemen didn't stop at broken rock equals knife. They got creative. Some figured out certain types of stone worked better like flint, obsidian, or chert. These weren't just random rocks. They were the Stone Age equivalent of premium materials. Using obsidian, for example, could give you a blade so sharp it made your enemies go, brr, where did you get that? Imagine flexing with your new obsidian blade while everyone else is still chewing meat with their molars. Caveman clout achieved. And making these knives wasn't just about survival. It was about power. Picture the caveman, one with a sharp stone knife, the other with nothing. Who gets the bigger piece of mammoth meat at dinner? Who gets the better chance of impressing that cave woman across the fire? That knife wasn't just a tool, it was a ticket to respect. So, why do we start this whole video with a joke about brushing teeth with rocks? Because that's the essence of the Stone Age, taking the dumbest, most painful, most ridiculous ideas and turning them into
I guess
genius.
I'll take this one.
Out of trial, error, and a few concussions came the birth of technology. Think about it. Without that one caveman smashing rocks together, maybe we wouldn't have knives today. And without knives, no steak dinners, no sushi rolls, no late-night peanut butter sandwiches. Every sharp blade you've ever used traces back to some caveman who got bonked in the head by a flying rock and thought, maybe I can use this. Now here's where it gets interesting. Making a stone knife in 5 minutes? Totally possible if you know what you're doing. Our caveman didn't. At first, he wasted hours, even days, bruising his hands and ego. But we're not going to make you suffer like that. We're going to fast-track you through the Stone Age crash course of knife step by step, fail by fail, laugh by laugh. Because if cavemen could do it with zero instructions, you can too with a little sarcastic commentary from me. But before we get into the how, let's appreciate the why. Imagine trying to survive without a knife. You're hungry. You've got a hunk of mammoth meat in front of you. No knife. Good luck tearing it apart with your bare teeth. You'll look like a toddler fighting with a giant piece of beef jerky. You want to scrape bark to make rope? Nope. Want to defend yourself from a wolf? Sorry, pal. Without a knife, you're basically Stone Age toast. So yeah, crafting a stone knife wasn't optional. It was mandatory. And the first time a caveman held that jagged, razor-sharp piece of flint in his hand, he probably felt like he'd just invented Fire 2.0. Cue dramatic slow motion. Caveman lifts the knife to the sky. Sunlight glints off the sharp edge. Tribal music swells in the background. In his head, he's thinking, I am unstoppable. In reality, he's about to drop it on his foot. But hey, progress is progress. And that's where our journey begins. The clumsy morning routines, the epic fails, the forehead bruises, and the one accidental discovery that changed everything. The stone knife. Crude, ugly, and perfect. Stick around, because next we're diving into the caveman's secret shopping guide. How to pick the right rock like it's the latest iPhone drop. So now you know the origin story, the glorious moment when a caveman smashed two rocks together, hurt himself, and accidentally invented the first cutting edge in history. But here's the thing, not every rock can be turned into a knife. Some rocks are just, well, rocks. Useless, crumbly, break in your hand, kind of rocks. You don't want to go into battle with a weapon that shatters like a stale cookie. That's why the next step is all about picking the right stone. Welcome to the Stone Age version of shopping for the latest iPhone. Picture it. A caveman strolls through the riverbed, scanning the ground like he's browsing the Apple store. He picks up one rock, squints at it, frowns. Too round. He picks up another, smacks it against his palm. Too soft. He lifts a third, and it crumbles in his hand like a week-old muffin. He groans, tosses it aside, and keeps looking. Meanwhile, his buddy shows up, holding a shiny piece of flint. Everyone gasps like he just walked in with an iPhone 15 Pro Max. Status level, maxed out. The truth is, Stone Age knife making was 50% luck and 50% geology. Cavemen didn't have a mineralogy textbook. They couldn't Google best rocks for cutting. They had to figure it out the hard way. Smash after smash, failure after failure, until one day someone realized, hey, this black, glassy stuff called obsidian, it doesn't just break, it shatters into edges sharp enough to shave with. And suddenly obsidian was the VIP of the Stone Age. If you had obsidian, you were basically the Elon Musk of CAVEM. Of course, not everyone lived near volcanoes where obsidian was found. Some had to settle for flint or chert, which were the dependable, middle-class knives of the prehistoric world. Not flashy, but solid. Imagine it like this. Obsidian was the Teslas, dangerous, sometimes brittle. Flint was the Toyota Corolla Riable, gets the job done, not as likely to explode in your hand. Either way, you needed the right stone to even think about making a blade. And here's the hilarious part. Choosing rocks wasn't some scientific process. It was pure trial and error, mixed with a lot of cursing in caveman language. One guy would proudly bring home a basket of smooth river stones, thinking he'd nailed it. Smash, 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 no edges. No knives, just bruises. Meanwhile, another caveman strolls in with a chunk of flint, casually chips at it, and boom, perfect blade. Instant jealousy. You could practically hear the Stone Age gossip. Did you see what Grug had at dinner last night? An obsidian knife. So sharp, so shiny. He probably traded 2 mammoth steaks for it. But let's not underestimate how big a deal this was. The right rock meant the difference between survival and starvation. Imagine hunting a deer with a dull rock that breaks in your hand. Goodbye dinner. Or trying to cut hides with something that chips into useless dust. Frustrating. Now imagine holding a razor-sharp flint blade that actually works. Suddenly, your tribe has clothes, rope, weapons, and dinner on the table. It's like jumping from dial-up internet straight to fiber optic Wi-Fi. Let's single quotes as make it modern for a second. Picking rocks back then was like online dating now. You had to look past the smooth, pretty surface and ask, will this one actually work for me long term? Some looked good but broke your heart. Others seemed boring but lasted forever. And once in a while, you found the one, that perfect piece of obsidian that made you feel like destiny had smiled upon you. And here's something funny. Cavemen didn't just use rocks lying around. They traveled to get better ones. Archaeologists have found obsidian knives hundreds of miles from the nearest volcano. That means some poor cavemen carried a backpack full of sharp rocks for days, maybe weeks, just to flex back home. Imagine explaining that trip. Honey, I'll be back in 3 months. Just going to walk across the continent to buy some obsidian. Don't wait up. The original long-distance shopping spree. So how do you know which rock to pick if you, a modern human, ever find yourself in a prehistoric situation, say? Your phone dies, civilization collapses, and suddenly you're living in a cave again. Here's the quick guide. Look for rocks that break like glass, not like chalk. Avoid round, smooth stones. They're great for skipping across a river, not cutting meat. Flint, chert, and obsidian are your MVPs. Quartz can work too, but it's like using a knockoff brand now. Imagine our caveman hero again. He's standing in the riverbed, rocks piled at his feet, frustration building. Finally, he picks up a chunk of flint. He smashes it against another. The piece flakes perfectly, leaving behind a sharp edge. He stares at it, eyes wide. He's done it. He's chosen wisely. In that moment, he feels like he's just unlocked a new achievement in life. Sharp rock discovered. Cue the caveman victory dance, which looks suspiciously like tripping over his own feet. And that's how it went. Choosing the right rock wasn't glamorous, but it was everything. Without it, no knife. Without a knife, no survival. And without survival, well, let's just say you wouldn't be here watching this video right now. So next time you complain about your kitchen knives getting dull, just remember, your ancestors once spent weeks wandering the wilderness just to find a rock sharp enough to cut a steak. Perspective. But don't go anywhere, because finding the right rock is only half the battle. Stick around, because next we'll show you how cavemen turned those chunks of stone into actual blades with nothing but brute force, dumb luck, and a whole lot of patience. All right, you've got the rock, the perfect one, the Stone Age equivalent of a brand new iPhone straight out of the box. But here's the problem. Right now, it's still just a rock. Nobody's going to be impressed if you walk into camp holding a chunky piece of flint and say, "Look, I invented the knife." They'll laugh, roll their eyes, and ask you to go fetch firewood. To really flex, you've got to shape that rock into something sharp, usable, and most importantly, dangerous. This is where the fun and the pain begins. The process. Smash, flake, bleed, repeat. There's no instruction manual, no YouTube tutorial with step-by-step chapters. Cavemen learn by trial and error, and by error, I mean smashing rocks until your hands blistered and your patience evaporated. Our caveman hero squats on the ground, rock in hand, ready to make history. He sets one stone on the ground, grabs another in his fist, and whack, he smashes down. A flake snaps off the side, leaving behind a jagged edge. He gasps. Progress. He tries again. Whack. Another flake? The edge is getting sharper. He grins, chest puffed, certain he's 2 minutes away from becoming the Steve Jobs of the Stone Age. And then, crack, the entire rock splits in half. Useless. He stares at it, groans, and throws it across the cave. The echo of the failure rattles through history. That was flint napping 101. The idea was to strike the stone just right, not too hard, not too soft, not at the wrong angle. You had to chip off thin flakes, shaping the rock into a blade. Sounds simple. Try it. You'll end up with a pile of broken rocks, sore arms, and a new respect for cavemen's patience. It was basically the prehistoric version of coding hours of failure for one tiny breakthrough. But when it worked, oh man, it worked. A perfectly flaked flint blade could be sharper than modern surgical steel. Archaeologists have tested obsidian blades that can cut cleaner than scalpels. Imagine being the first caveman to figure that out. You slice a piece of meat, and it slides like butter. The tribe stares at you like you're a wizard. Congratulations, you've just invented respect. Of course, it wasn't just smashing and praying. Cavemen eventually developed technique. They figured out you had to hit the stone at an angle, not straight on. They discovered that softer hammerstones like sandstone or antler gave more control than just bashing with any old rock. Suddenly, this wasn't random luck anymore. It was skill, a true craft. You weren't just a caveman anymore. You were a craftsman. And let's not forget the soundtrack. Every flint napping session came with its own percussion, symphony, clack, clack, crack, tink. Add in some caveman grunts and occasional yelps of pain when a shard flew into someone's thigh. And you've got the first prehistoric EDM concert. Picture it. A circle of cavemen, banging rocks in rhythm, sparks flying, dust in the air. The tribal version of a rave. But the process wasn't without its hazards. Sharp flakes flew everywhere. Eyes, arms, legs, everything was a target. Without safety goggles, cavemen basically invented accidental tattoos made of scars. You knew a real knife maker by the tiny cuts crisscrossing his hands. Think of it as the Stone Age version of having calluses from lifting weights at the gym. Pain was proof of skill. Let's zoom in on our caveman again. Sweat drips down his forehead. His palms are raw. He lines up the strike carefully this time, breathing deeply like a yoga instructor. Tap, crack, a perfect flake comes off. He can't believe it. He flips the stone, tries again. Tap, crack, another one. Slowly, carefully, a blade shape starts to emerge. It's ugly, crude, not winning any design awards, but it's sharp. He tests it on a piece of bark slice. It works. He tests it on a strand of animal sinew cut clean. He tests it on his hair roots, too sharp. Half his bangs are gone. Still, progress. The first time he presents it to the tribe, you can imagine the pride. He struts into camp, chest out, holding the jagged blade aloft like it's Excalibur. Everyone gathers around, oohing and on. He slices through a piece of raw meat in front of them, and the crowd gasps. He's no longer just that guy who hit himself with a rock last week. He's now the guy who invented the knife. Respect level unlocked. And it didn't stop there. Once the blade was shaped, cavemen realized they could make it even better, sharpen the edge more, attach it to a wooden handle with sinew, even carry a spare for flexing at tribal gatherings. The Stone Age arms race had begun. You had a knife. Great. The guy next cave over had a sharper one. Soon, entire tribes were showing off their best blades like teenagers comparing sneakers. It was the first tech boom rock edition. But here's the hilarious truth. Even the best knife didn't always survive. Use it wrong, and it broke. Drop it, and you were back to square one. And unlike a modern chef's knife, there was no warranty. You couldn't return it to Caveman Depot and demand a replacement. If it shattered, you just sighed, grabbed another rock, and started all over again. Still, every strike, every flake, every bloody thumb was worth it. Because with each knife, humanity took another step forward. From carving spears to butchering meat, from scraping hides to defending against predators. The stone knife wasn't just a tool. It was a game changer. And the best part, you could make one in 5 minutes if you had the right stone and just enough patience not to smash it to dust. Quick, crude, sharp, the ultimate life hack of 50,000 years ago. So the next time you chop onions with your stainless steel kitchen knife, just picture the first caveman, sweaty and bruised, grinning like a fool as he held up his jagged blade to the firelight. That moment of triumph echoes through every knife we use today. But don't leave yet, because we're not finished. We've got one more step. Stick around, because next, we're going to see what happened when cavemen actually used their knives and how that one sharp edge changed not just dinner, but their entire way of life. So here we are, the big reveal. The rock has been chosen, chipped, flaked, and sharpened. The caveman has sweated, cursed, and bled his way through countless failed attempts. But finally, he's holding it. The world's very first knife. It doesn't sparkle like stainless steel. It doesn't fold into 10 different tools. And it definitely doesn't come with a lifetime guarantee. But in that dim cave, with firelight flickering against the walls, that jagged blade looks like a miracle dot. Picture the moment. He lifts it up slowly, almost reverently, like he's presenting it to the gods of stone and fire. The tribe gathers around, eyes wide. For a second, the whole cave is silent. Then he drags the edge across a piece of raw mammoth meat. The cut is clean, smooth, effortless. Gasps erupt. To them, this is sorcery. He's just taken a useless chunk of rock and turned it into a weapon, a tool, a lifeline. From this point on, life changes. Suddenly, food preparation becomes faster. Skins can be scraped into clothing. Spears can be carved sharper for hunting. Rope can be cut and tied. The caveman who made that knife has given his people not just a tool, but an upgrade to their entire way of living. In modern terms, it's the Stone Age equivalent of dropping the first iPhone. Clunky, weird-looking, but revolutionary. Everyone wanted one. Of course, let's not forget the comedy. Our hero, chest puffed out, struts around camp with his new blade like he's the king of the world. He shows it off to his friends, slicing bark, meat, even the air just to watch it cut. At one point, he tries to shave a bit of hair off his arm. He cuts deeper than planned and yelps in pain. The tribe laughs, slapping their knees. But deep down, They're impressed. This goofy caveman, the same guy who once smashed rocks into his own forehead, is now a legend. And that's the thing about human invention. It's always messy at first. Trial, error, accidents, laughter, failure. But in the end, what matters is the result. That crude stone knife is more than just sharp rock. It's the birth of technology. It's the moment humans stopped being at the mercy of nature and started shaping it for themselves, one jagged edge at a time. Let's zoom out. Without that knife, no progress. No knives, no spears, no big hunts, no big hunts, no feasts, no celebrations, no dancing around the fire. In short, no knife equals no party. The knife didn't just keep them alive. It gave them culture, stories, and eventually history itself. Think about it. Every blade in your kitchen drawer, every pocket knife, every chef's knife, every scalpel in a hospital lid, all traces back to one caveman, sitting in the dirt, sweating over two rocks. Every cut you've ever made, every meal you've ever sliced, is part of that same legacy. That moment in the cave was humanity's first step into a world of tools, of mastery, of control. And all of it started with a dumb accident, a lot of persistence, and a caveman too stubborn to quit now. Here's where we wrap up, but not without a teaser. Because sure, knives were amazing. They changed everything. But what happened after knives? When cavemen had the ability to cut, carve, and create, they didn't just stop at survival. Oh no, they started to get creative. They made tools, weapons, ornaments. They even started planning bigger and better gatherings. And trust me, when cavemen threw parties, they went all out. Fire, food music made by banging bones, the works. So stick around, because while the stone knife was history's first real life hack, what came next was even wilder. You think you've seen everything. Just wait until you see how cavemen partied like it was 10,000 BC.